Let's talk today about a different approach on today's market, on today's world. I want to make a video talking about how the situation appears to be for specifically a lot of young men. Now, I've made a few videos on topics like this in the past. You'll have to just get on board with me spinning on this chair because it's quite comfortable. I've made a lot of videos on this in the past because it's something that a lot of the audience who watch this demographically can probably relate to, being as a lot of the viewers of this channel are basically men aged between like 18 and 35. And obviously I am a man in that category myself. Now, a lot of men in this category, not all, seem to be either falling behind or feel like they're falling behind. And I want to make a video talking about this. Now, I don't know if it's just a thing for young men, but I think it's a feeling easy to feel. And I know some people would say it's because all men are behind in this day and age. And I don't necessarily like to make that point or argument because times change. Things are different, right? Society changes, ambitions change, wants change, abilities to afford and not afford different things vary over time. With that being said, we do seem to live in a market today where a lot of young men feel like they're behind, right? They feel like they're in a position where they're not making the advancements that they want in a lot of fields, maybe all. I think a lot of this stems down to simply the results that a lot of young guys face today. If we look in today's market, a lot of young people, full stop, can't necessarily see the results that they're working for. They can't necessarily see the end goal that they're working for. And I think specifically for the demographic of young men, is one of those things where when they look to figures in their family like parents or grandparents, let's say fathers or grandfathers, they may feel like they're falling behind them, but they fail to acknowledge that the markets are completely different. A lot of houses cost not like 3-4 times the average salary, more like 20 times. So yes, you can still afford it on a mortgage, but then that brings the question, can you actually afford it at all? That's a different point. But they fail to acknowledge this difference in trends, and that's just one trend. Another thing that I think a lot of young guys face at the minute is a smaller social circle, and this is one of those things which I think is probably the biggest contributor for people probably feeling behind, just in general, men and women, young people of this generation. Because say what you want about money and finance and having a good job, take that all out of the equation if it means nothing. The only reason why we want to have the latest car, the only reason why we want to have a nice house, mine is to please ourselves on a surface level. We want to appear successful to our peers, right? What if we don't have any peers? What if we don't have any friends? What if we don't have any people who we are close to? And of course, fortunately for me, that's not the situation, right? I have a lot of friends. I have a lot of close loved ones. I have a lot of intimate relationships in my life that I can treasure and cherish. And I've got people who I can call on at least a couple of times a week, different people to have a good time with, right? Outside of the parameters of work and school and college and university, I've got people who I can call genuine friends who I would see and do see irrespective of all of and outside of all of those environments. Now, for a lot of people these days, it seems that that's not the case. I think the internet's one of the things which has kind of led to this scenario. The scenario where a lot of people just live an online life. Now, I've said this before, I make money online. The majority of my money is made online, like the vast majority of it. I'd say about 70% of my money comes from different internet income streams. That's fine for me because, like I say, I've got a good friend network, and not to brag, but I feel like I make friends everywhere I go, and I know I can. But that only came about through the fortune, and it is just luckiness of having an initial great ability to build bonds with people. A lot of people now don't have the confidence to take that first step, and it leads to them falling behind both in their friendships and I would say their romantic relationships. When you don't have a support network to boost you up, when you don't have a friend group to feel part of, when you don't feel part of the broader group of the world, I suppose there'd be less to work towards, there'd be less to feel. Now, that's a very defeatist mindset, I'd say, and I wouldn't feel like that myself. I always think a problem is an opportunity for growth, but obviously, not everybody has that mindset, not everybody has the privilege to think like that, and subsequently, a lot of these people end up feeling behind. So, when we combine the fact that people feel like they can't have the privileges, and it is a privilege, but people feel like, whether it's true or not, they can't have the privilege of having a house and a good career that's actually viable long term. That creates an environment where people start to think, why bother? And obviously, on top of that, the deeper issues of meaningful relationships, the fact that a lot of people do not have the fortune and luckiness of having those in their life, the fact that we have a lot of guys these days who do not have many close friends at all, the fact that we have a lot of guys who don't even have any close relationships with a girlfriend or any partners of that variety, it's deeply worrying. But obviously, people fail to acknowledge this fact in life, right? When people feel like they have a stake in something, they work harder towards it. And what I mean by that is this: if you can see a goal, like me, people can complain in the comment section all they like. I couldn't care less. I know one day I'm going to run my own businesses successfully. I'm going to make a full-time living off of it, right? I just know it's going to be the case. And because I know that, I can work harder towards it. If I had lost all hope in running my own businesses, for example, it'd be a lot harder to stay motivated. And I think that's a situation that a lot of these people find themselves in. They find themselves living in a situation where they feel like they can't achieve and perform to the same level that perhaps would have been expected years ago. Now, of course, this is not necessarily the case at all. With the knowledge that's out there in the world, with the information, with the access to different things, you can be the best. Like, full stop. You can be at the absolute pinnacle of human evolution. You really can. And this is what I think we should all be working towards. It means different things for different people. Not for everybody does it mean going to the gym and being an absolute beast. Not for everybody does it mean being the cleverest that they can, even though that's something that I think everyone should aim for, as is the gym. Not for everyone does it mean having the most money that they can. In today's society, we live in a world where influencers the like of Andrew Tate rise to prominence, which lead us to believe that if we don't have a Lamborghini and 3 mansions at aged 15, we're failing. We live in a world where we are exposed to people who are, I don't know, online dropshippers. Admittedly, I am one myself, but these people who claim to be making millions of pounds a year, a month, simply by selling stuff online. And it might lead people to think, well, I'm just a complete failure. You know, this guy's making millions of pounds online. I work in a shop making £10 an hour, £11, £12 an hour. The reality is, neither path is wrong. Neither path has ever been wrong. And no one's wrong for being on either path. You can always catch up to a goal. You can always look forwards to something. But you need to be willing to acknowledge that you are not in the wrong for being in a different place. The reason why a lot of these guys I think are falling behind is not necessarily even because they're falling behind, because they think that they're falling behind, and that creates a sort of cycle of perhaps negativity and doubt, a lack of self-belief, and all these other problems which, funnily enough, are a bit of a spiral. They're a loop. If you feel demotivated, if you feel like you're not getting results in life, you're just going to feel worse and worse and worse, which ironically for a lot of people is going to make them try less hard. And that's just the reality of it. Is that correct? Is it right? Probably not, actually. Definitely not. But people these days are also failing to put themselves out there, failing to go and experience things that would have been considered normal 20, 30 years ago. Part of it is acknowledging that we live in a world where certain things just don't work anymore. Part of it is acknowledging that we live in a world where these things are exactly the same, but some of them you actually need to go and put yourself out there in a way that you are currently not willing to. And unless you find the desire, the drive to actually do this, you may not get the results that you claim to want. So it's a funny thing, but the more effort you put in, the luckier you get, right? The more effort you put in, the luckier you get. I had to reiterate that twice because of how powerful of a point it is. It's common sense, but think about it. And with that being the backdrop of this video, what can you achieve if you actually start to not complain, but acknowledge that things are different, acknowledge that opportunities are still there, just different ones, and actually start to capitalize on them? I'll leave that for you guys to figure out, but thank you for watching. I hope I'll see you soon. Goodbye.